The seed catalogs are starting to arrive for 2026. Gardeners always await seed catalogs. It's always an exciting time of year as fall goes into winter and the seed catalogs start coming. It seems like they're coming earlier and earlier. But one thing that you're going to notice, besides a lot of new varieties and some old favorites, are the prices. And the prices, to no one's surprise, are going up. One firm that sells seeds says, well, it's the tariffs. But what a lot of people don't realize is that your favorite grower, whoever it may be, wherever you buy your seeds from, if it's a seed catalog company, their seeds are coming from all over the world. We're talking with Renee Shepherd of Renee's Garden, and she's been in the seed business for years and years and years and decades. And Renee, trace for us the path of the garden seeds that you sell. Where do they originate? Where do they go? How do they get to you?
There's a lot of very small first of all, there's small regional companies, and a lot of people start out in the seed business by trying to grow what they are going to sell. And that works for a while. But if you're at all successful, you need to buy larger quantities. And there are some companies that still set contract with farmers to grow them. But in general, once you get to a certain size and you need a lot of seed and you want to be able to have consistent quality and availability every year, you buy from companies, large and small. Some are small family organizations, some are large seed companies. I'm not necessarily talking about the Monsantos and the very large commodity producers, but vegetable seed and flower seed producers produce seed, and those of us in the seed trade buy the seed from them. And we find out the germination, when it was grown, the purity. There's quite a bit of regulation that occurs, and we buy the seed in, say, 50-pound sacks, or if it's tomato seed, by the pound. And then we decide how many seeds is going to go in a packet, and we weigh that amount. And then there's machines that fill the packets by weight. And you stop the machine about every 100, 150 packets to check that the weight is correct. So that's how the seeds get in packets. Now, that's not to say that, as I said, there's some small companies that either grow a lot of their varieties or do contracts. But if you're very large, when you get to some size and you don't need 2 ounces of tomato seed, you need 2 pounds, then you're going to look for someone who has high quality, consistent amounts. And then if something like COVID happens and you need to buy a whole lot more seed fast, you really don't have time to grow it, and you want to not worry about a crop shortage or a climate disaster. So you look to companies that store it properly and inventory it. And seed is grown all over the world. In the United States, there's a lot of seeds grown. We grow a lot of green beans here, and peppers and carrots in the Pacific Northwest, and so on. But there's a lot of seed that is grown in Africa, Chile, Brazil, Western Europe, Korea. Some still seed grown in China, although China is becoming less and less of a seed, someplace that we all import seed from because of all the reasons you were talking about. So it's very international. Our company, Renee's Garden, tries to get things from where they are grown and eaten often. So we actually get our Italian basils from Italy, for example. So you buy the seed from reputable seed dealers, and you trial it in a trial garden, hopefully, and then you put it in packets, and we test the seed every 6 months to make sure it's viable, because different garden seeds have different lengths of time that they are viable. For example, chive seeds last about 2 years, lettuce seeds maybe 2 years. Tomatoes, when properly stored, can last 8 or 9 years. So you have to know that stuff. So if you buy seeds from a good packet seed company, they're paying attention to all that, so you don't have to. If you buy more seeds than you need, you can generally keep them for next year. You put them in a sealed mason jar and freeze them, taking them in the freezer, taking them out and letting them come to room temperature before you try them next year. Never leave seeds outside or in your garage. Their worst enemies are heat and humidity.
We should point out that you're not dealing on a country-by-country basis when you're buying seeds. I bet you're buying from wholesalers based in the United States who are first buying the seeds from all over the world and then reselling them.
No, that's not the case. We buy direct from the seed producers and import the seed because we want to have a direct connection. I don't buy much from wholesalers, no.
All right. Tariffs do play a part in this, and prices have gone up in all commodities just about, and seeds so far haven't been exempt, but it's still early in the week. Are you finding that the prices have gone up in the last year, spiked, and the only thing you can attribute it to is tariffs?
Prices for seeds have been going up for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and the tariffs are just on top of that.
Right. And those costs are passed on to you.
Well, inevitably, if we're paying 20 or 30% more for something, we can't absorb it all. So, yes.
I noticed at a big nursery yesterday that at the seed rack, there are several ways you can measure what's in that little packet. There's milligrams and grams and ounces, fractions of ounces, even just a seed count. And all of those are legal as far as what you state on that packet as far as the contents?
There are both state and federal laws for germination, purity, disease free, and so on. But the laws for how you can state it in a seed packet are somewhat patchy and vary from state to state. But think about it. If I'm going to sell you some bean seeds, years ago we used to give a lot of beans. Now it's less because it's gotten way more expensive for fresh, good quality seed. So I'm going to tell you how many grams you have. I could also tell you how many seeds, but as I said, the weight is the best measurement. So we use weights. Some people use seed counts, but that's kind of old fashioned and you don't see it that much anymore because seeds vary by size and shape. I mean, tomato seeds are all going to be relatively the same size, but squash cube seeds vary a lot. So we use weight. And so I don't mean to be vague, but yes, people do. They can use parts of ounces, but there aren't too many packet seed companies that have ounces of seed in their packets anymore. For one thing, 20, 30, 40 years ago, gardeners were really doing it for seed, put a lot for food by, they canned and froze, fed large families, and so on. People don't really need as much seed in a packet as they used to a generation ago. You are not planting, a 40-foot row of kale.
Nor are the yards that big anyway.
That's right. So that is one reason that things have changed. But it's mostly prices. Prices have gone up because it costs more to grow things and ship things, store things. Energy prices have gone up, labor prices have gone up. Seeds are not immune from that any more than anything else.
Well, it makes sense for the home gardener as these prices go up then, if they don't use all the seeds in a packet, would be to save the seeds. You gave some tips on how to preserve those seeds. I'd like to delve a little bit more into that, and maybe also the proper way to harvest those seeds to use for the following year, if indeed those seeds can be saved.
Well, you can save seeds if they are not hybrids. Do you explain that to your listeners?
We certainly do. Talking about hybrids versus heirlooms, basically F1 strains, do not come back true in the following generations. It's interesting that there are movements afoot, like the landrace movement of people who save seeds, but they're not that concerned about preservation of all the qualities. Basically, what they're trying to do is breed seeds to grow in their climate. And the way they do that is just keep replanting and replanting and replanting until they get a desired specimen.
Well, let's unpack it a little. A hybrid seed is created by crossing two varieties. Let's say you're making a hybrid broccoli. You have one parent that's got really good disease resistance, and you got another one that tastes great and harvested early. And you cross the parents, and with a lot of science, because breeders know a lot and have a lot of skills, they come up with a hybrid that has the disease resistance and the earliness and, let's say, flavor or whatever. And so if you buy that seed and plant it, you're going to get the benefits of that hybridization. However, if you become smart about how far apart broccoli varieties need to be so they don't cross pollinate, so you can save the seed. Because anyway, if you save the seed from that broccoli and you plant it, it's not the original cross, and you'll get a whole bunch of different kinds of broccoli, but none of them will be the same thing. It's not that hybrids can't produce seed, it's that they often don't produce the same thing over and over again. Whereas if you plant an open pollinated seed, which is not a cross of two different strains, then you can save that seed and it'll breed true. Now, heirlooms are simply open pollinated varieties that have been around for 50 years or so. They are not a thing, they're a reflection of how old the variety is.
Exactly. And depending on how they're grown, you mentioned spacing. And of course, there's problems if you're growing things like zucchini or melons, anything in the cucurbit family, where you might have some cross pollination going on. It's harder to keep that strain pure.
Well, it's not hard. You just have to get a book, go online, and learn the distance you have to isolate things in the same family so they don't cross. So it's a whole nother hobby.
Right.
Okay.
And if you want to grow corn, you better own acreage.
No, you can plant corn by fairly close together if you get varieties that are early and a late corn. One will pollinate way before the other, and you'll be okay. So that's a matter of learning how to do it. But for most home gardeners, open pollinated and heirloom open pollinated varieties, and hybrids all have a place. I, for example, am a big advocate of hybrid broccoli because it has a lot more disease resistance. It tastes better, and so on. So hybrids have a place for home gardens, and so do heirlooms and open pollinated varieties. So I think they're all good. But hybrids are always more expensive because they take a lot more intervention to produce.
One complaint I've heard from some people, it's getting harder and harder to find those old standbys, especially in the world of vegetables, that they seem to have been supplanted in the seed racks by the newer hybrids.
Well, I can't comment. I certainly don't sell OP broccoli anymore, so I guess guilty as charged, but I think the hybrid broccoli is better. I don't know. I think there's a lot of companies out there that still sell the old favorites, but you're going to have to go online or get a catalog. You are not going to find them in stores on seed racks. And you're particularly not going to find a lot of stuff in big box stores because they get a selection and that's the selection they have. So you have to put a little more time in. But there's so many resources now with the internet and everything.
How do you choose which varieties make it to a retail seed rack? In the nursery I was in yesterday, there were 3 companies that had seed racks. There was Botanical Interests, there was Lake, and there was Renee's. But obviously you have limited space. How do you choose the varieties that get to a location?
First of all, we have to get in the store. It's a highly competitive market, and independent nurseries don't tend to necessarily get new seed lines unless there's some reason there was a problem with the old seed line. So we have to work hard to get market share. Box stores, the bigger stores, carry the similar lines and make their own decisions. But deciding, well, what we used to do every year is look at what sold and what people wanted to buy and change the racks accordingly.
Okay, so was it based on locality? Would you take the interests of the store owner in mind when selecting the varieties?
Well, you asked how we decide what goes in a rack. Uh, our company and some other companies, but we trial everything, and we have trial gardens here in Central California where it's mild climate, but we get a lot of cold in the winter. We actually have quite a bit of frost in the winter. And we also grow new varieties in Vermont to see what they do in a zone 4. So we pick the varieties that do very well. In vegetables, they taste great, they're disease resistant and widely adopted. So if we find something that's better, we will introduce it. And most good seed companies do that. So how do we decide? We look for what sell. I mean, it's not rocket science. If everybody wants to buy it, we probably will keep it on the rack. If it doesn't sell, we'll take it off. For example, Zinnias are really popular right now, and sunflowers are popular. Cosmos have taken a dip in popularity. Things so we probably won't have as many cosmos as we used to, or won't look for as many new ones.
Let's talk a little bit about the catalog itself. It seems like they're becoming fewer and fewer, the kind that hit the mailbox every fall and winter. Are catalogs becoming a thing of the past and everything is happening online?
No, I wouldn't say that. There's still a lot of companies that do both, but I mean, a lot of people take their catalog and look through it and then go online and order.
Right, right.
That's how LL Bean makes most of his money, and they don't have any less catalogs, that's for sure.
If you want to hear and read more about the 2026 seed price sticker shock, please become a paid subscriber to the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter and podcast. Paid subscribers will find out more about which seed companies to avoid online, the decrease in diversity of varieties of flowers and vegetables that are available, 2 ways to preserve your own seeds for the short term and the long term, and the 3 mistakes that beginning gardeners make that can be avoided. All that awaits paid subscribers to the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter and podcast. Don't forget that paid subscribers also get access to the complete library of newsletter editions, which now are getting close to 300. And the full newsletter and podcast feature a human-powered transcription of the podcast, which puts those AI-generated transcriptions to shame that you're going to find on some of those podcast players. Plus, it lets me know that I'm doing something worthwhile here that you find of value, even if it is perhaps only occasionally. The Beyond the Garden Basics podcast and newsletter comes out twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. So thanks for becoming a paid subscriber. Just click on the subscribe link in the newsletter to keep the good research-based gardening information coming your way. And you'll get the rest of this podcast and the complete newsletter, including the transcription, when you become a paid subscriber. Thank you for listening and reading.